Hello, I'm the biochemist, and I've got an experiment. I'm searching for the highs, the lows, and the mids of the PlayStation catalog here on the PS1 Library Deep Dive. My search through the highs, lows, and mids of the PS1 library has finally led me to our special place. In my opinion, there are no perfect games, especially with the force of time and the power of retrospect. As technology ages, as games get older, their flaws often become more pronounced. Today's game might be the only one I know of that has actually benefited from the passing of time, culminating in perhaps not a perfect game, but a perfect horror experience. It's Silent Hill. In this video, we'll talk about this beautiful game, and we'll learn a lot about some of the game's creators. First, we start with the cover art.
30 seconds, go!
It's overcrowded, yes, but I think the North American cover actually gets it right. The eyes are first drawn to Harry's face, partially a negative and very unsettling. You'll then see Silent Hill stand out in red on the top, but after that you might, like me, miss the three ghostly faces surrounding Harry. Their presence is almost eerie, on a subliminal level. You see this cover on the shelf? You're guaranteed to be drawn in by the curse bestowed on you by its hypnotic gaze.
Change the world. My final message. Goodbye.
I've seen so many reviews and analyses of this franchise from great creators like Avalanche Reviews and Max Storot, so it's difficult for me to make original observations on this game. I'm just going to do a bit of, stream of consciousness for much of this, but I'm going to start off by saying this. If there's one single PS1 game you play, it should be this title on screen. No, not that one, no. It should be Silent Hill. The original Silent Hill is probably the scariest in the series, in my eyes, other than maybe Silent Hill 4, I guess, but they scratch two different itches. 4 was, to me, a depressing and lonely game, not to mention a bit frustrating.
Nice iframes.
The original here is discombobulating, anxiety-driving, and just off-putting. The opening of this game is simply iconic and immaculately done, setting up all the aspects of horror I just described. The intro FMV is a bit abstract, but it shows how your character, Harry, gets into a car crash and ends up in Silent Hill with his daughter Cheryl missing. When you first take over Harry, you have to follow the figure of a little girl running just out of your reach. The anxiety, the tension builds as you follow her through the fog, past cadavers and down creepy alleyways as night quickly falls to the tune of air raid sirens. Disorientation follows as the camera purposefully whips around at indescribable angles until the horrors crescendo as some type of mangled humanoid hanging by chains to a fence. You're quickly overwhelmed by deformed children who lead you to an inescapable death. Then you wake up. You're just fine. And you're with a cop now. She explains that something funny is going on and she gives you a gun. This is the first conversation we hear and it's off-putting to say the least. Many people complain about bad voice acting in games from this era, and it's often justified. I think the performances here are pretty solid though. What's strange is how long it takes for these two to respond to each other.
Have you seen a little girl? Just turned 7 last month, short, black hair. My daughter.
Sorry. The only person I've seen in this town is you.
Where is everybody?
You'll notice each sentence is spaced out with long pauses of silence. This may have been, I think, due to technical limitations of the PlayStation, but I genuinely think it adds to the game. It gives you the feeling that you're watching two aliens try to act like humans, and trying to process how to respond in real time. It feels right out of Eraserhead or Twin Peaks, not the first time these games have been described as Lynchian. What adds to this is how Harry acts. In this first scene, his actions are those of a loving father. His only goal is to find his daughter. There's a dissonance between his actions and how he talks, though. Any man would be freaking out right now, screaming, "Where is she? Is she okay? We need to get her now." The second he woke up from this nightmare. Harry does say things like that, but he's so nonchalant about it. Something just feels so off. And from there, we get to explore the horrors that Silent Hill holds. Its opening 5 minutes may be the best in all video games, a succinct thesis statement about what the rest of the game is going to be about. You get to walk through neighborhoods, by houses and garages and businesses, completely devoid of life, seemingly frozen in time yet still intact, till you run into roads completely destroyed. Precipitous cliffs interrupt the arteries in the small town, implying the presence of some sort of looming eldritch threat. Lovecraft's inspirations can be seen throughout this game, with tons of doors leading to nowhere and corridors that couldn't really possibly be there, strange geometries, odd layouts of buildings that couldn't possibly be connected. especially the further you go into this game. Harry continues to search for his daughter until it brings him to the schoolhouse. Schools may be the ultimate liminal space when empty after hours, but the fact this is an elementary school makes it all that much scarier as our first quote-unquote level. What's supposed to be an innocent place for children to grow and learn is bastardized by, again, those childlike simulacra that killed you in the opening. And it's certainly no coincidence that we're in a schoolhouse. I won't say too much about the game's story, but it's got significance. Harry eventually hears an air raid siren again and ends up walking through an underground corridor leading him to the school again. Only this time something's off. Even more off, I should say. He's gone to the other world. The school is degraded to a rusted, dilapidated, hellacious corpse of what it once was. It's been a while since I last played this game, so anything after the school was kind of a blur, I gotta say. I'd forgotten just how abrupt the transition to the other world is once you reach the hospital. And the first time I ran into that nurse, that was creepy as hell. Harry's search for Cheryl continues through other parts of town where he'll run into a small cast of characters. Where he finds an old lady in a church who speaks real peculiar and alludes to knowing where Cheryl is. Harry will end up exploring the hospital, an antique shop, a police station, a mall, lighthouse, amusement park, all sorts of locations, not to mention all of the foggy streets of Silent Hill. Exploring so many places makes it feel like the world really has fallen into shit. Silent Hill 1 isn't the longest game by any means, but by the time you're done with it, you'll have explored so much that it feels like a much longer experience looking back. They really cram a lot into this game. So by running into this cast of characters, Harry learns that there's a mysterious cult behind the town's downfall, and they have special interest in Cheryl for some reason. I won't get into the rest of the story, you should play it yourself, to be honest. I do want to say that it can be a bit confusing to get the whole picture of the story. Silent Hill doesn't tell you every single detail very plainly. You gotta search and explore to find the optional things, and if you want to see everything, you'll have to play through a few times to see each of the game's multiple endings. Before I move on, I do want to talk about my favorite character, the nurse Liiisaaaa. She's not the deepest, but she's probably the best acted character in the game, and she's shrouded with mystery and tragedy. It seems to me like Liiisaaaa was trapped in the other world, unable to even leave her room in the hospital in fear of being attacked. Yeah, that's the best word for her, fear. She was so afraid. I won't go too much into the rest of the game's story, but here's the ending to Liisa's story.
I am still alive even though everyone else is dead. I'm not the only one who's still walking around. I'm the same as them. I just hadn't noticed it before.
Liiisaaaa.
Stay by me, Harry. Please. I'm so scared. Help me. Save me from them. Please. Harry.
Honestly, Harry kinda did her dirty. She just needed someone to comfort her, man. That scene was accompanied by the song Lisa's Theme by Akira Yamaoka. That brings us to the sounds of Silent Hill. The soundtrack, noises, and effects are so important in building the player's experience, especially since your vision is restricted by fog and darkness for so much of this game. The static of the radio acts as a sort of radar alerting you to the monsters nearby that may just be outside of your field of view. Even simple sounds are so impactful. Harry panting, trying to catch his breath after running makes you feel vulnerable. I'm just a dude, I'm not built for this. The leathery flap of wings you can't see, getting louder as they approach. The iconic, harrowing air raid siren I mentioned. And they're always just throwing in some odd sounds here and there, just out of your view, like a bump in the far corner of the room, or the distant crying of a child. And oh my lord, the footsteps. I know this sounds mundane, but the footsteps here, iconic. No joke. I think about these footstep sound effects a lot. If I'm walking around an empty building after hours or down a dead street late at night by myself, I swear I hear Harry's footsteps in the echoes of my own. That's called sound design. No other game takes up that niche real estate in my mind. Akira Yamaoka provided the score, which has a few rock and melodic tracks, but also a ton of ominous ambient sounds and intimidating, crushing music that sounds like industrial machinery. Every sound makes this game feel so alive, but so dead at the same time. Silent Hill's graphics are impressive for the PS1. People in the FMVs are actually not terrifying, and you can even understand their emotions through facial expressions. I know, almost human. During gameplay, the fog and darkness that this title is famous for both boost performance and add to the atmosphere. There's a reason why it's one of the most talked about graphical tricks on the PlayStation. The lighting is surprisingly good too, another way Team Silent showed off their graphical chops. Harry's flashlight is just about the only thing that pierces into the ever-growing darkness of the otherworld, and is one of the most powerful tools on his utility belt. Your flashlight acts realistically, illuminating just the world immediately in front of you, polygon by polygon. Just see how beautiful this looks. It's delectable. Now, Silent Hill might be impressive for the PlayStation, but it, like most 32-bit 3D games, shows its age today. And that is what is so perfect about it. The older this game gets, the worse it looks, the more horrifying the world it builds is. We're so used to crystal clear creatures, 4K feeds, and high-def hounds of hell. Since we get to see our enemies in such detail, we forget how scary the unknown really is. Silent Hill's lo-fi look leaves a lot to the imagination, but implies just enough for you to fill in the most dreadful dots possible. I'm not the only one who thinks this. In recent years, low poly has been making a comeback, and I've been predicting it would for a while. Just as pixel art was huge in the indie scene of the 2010s, low fidelity and low poly are coming back, baby. Hell, look at Gwimbly's recent success after homelessness.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
We've already seen critical successes like 2024's Crow Country or 2022's Signalis and Bloodwash. I have a hunch any horror game in this style has some debt to pay to Silent Hill here. And I've talked about them a bit, but I gotta say the enemies are integral to why this game works, and one of the reasons why I say this game has aged so well. It's clear what these monsters might represent, but it's impossible to tell for sure. It's a combination not just of the low poly graphics, but the art design too. They all feel like demons escaped from hell. Their otherworldliness really makes you feel like you're in over your head, like you're stuck in a room filled with Sid's toys. Let's compare the dogs from Resident Evil on the PS1 to the hounds in Silent Hill. In Resi, the dogs are clearly zombified with blood on them and chunks of them just taken out, revealing bone. They're undead, but they were once alive. Silent Hill's dogs don't look like they've been killed before. They appear like they're inside out. They're emaciated. They don't look like they've ever even been alive. We should probably talk about the gameplay of this game too, right? The main gameplay elements borrow heavily from genre-defining Resident Evil. That is, you're going to be doing three main things: exploring, solving some puzzles, and killing or running away from enemies. Silent Hill makes some changes in all these areas. Not only do you get to explore the town and many of its buildings, but the map system you'll be using is far more detailed. It actually is updated automatically as you find things. In that sense, Silent Hill is actually pretty ahead of its time. Resident Evil would do small updates like color changes, but here you get actual notes written on the map. The puzzles here are similar to Resident Evil. Many of them are just find the thing and put it in the right place, but some clues and riddles here are more difficult, some pretty obtuse. Combat is simple with a few melee options and a few guns, but you get a bit more mobility while moving. Harry is a bit stiffer, but he can strafe and move while he has the gun prepped. I gotta say the weapons of Silent Hill feel way more utilitarian than they do in Resident Evil games. What I mean is, when I get a new gun in RE, I'm almost giddy and excited to use it. Give me some ammo and I'll shoot those acid rounds at the zombies. Here though, when I get the rifle, I'm thinking, okay, I'm stockpiling the ammo up, I'm ready to take out the next boss. This may be a consequence of the style of horror that SH is going for, being more deeply disturbing. It also could be that since RE is more action focused, it takes more priority in making sure the guns feel and sound more powerful. It would be difficult to feel scared and powerless here in Silent Hill when you're packing a lot of heat, right? So, is this game perfect? Okay, I can't lie, it's not. While endlessly intriguing, the game's presentation would have been better if the in-engine cutscenes were not just two people standing in place and talking. Even just a few changes of camera angle would have gone a long way. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't care much for the story of this game because of how it's presented. I sure as hell didn't care about the story when I was playing this for the first time when I was much younger. Yes, the denizens of the town were off-putting and peculiar, but I just wanted to get back to exploring. Combat is a bit too simple and stiff by today's standards, even with the added mobility of walking while shooting. Bosses have always been a sticky point for this series too. I do like how hints are given here and there to describe how to defeat some of the bosses. It does add to the lore of the game and makes the battles feel like they kind of mean something, but it really is the same song and dance as fighting normal enemies for the most part. It's just run away, dump a lot of bullets into them, and repeat. What stinks though is that you never really know if you're doing the right thing against each boss because they hardly react to your bullets. And there's no health bar or indicator, so sometimes it just feels like you're wasting all your ammo, not knowing if you're actually doing the right thing. Then the fight just stops. I played on normal difficulty since this was my first replay in a long time. I forgot how much health and ammo you'll have if you just do a little bit of extra exploring, so dumping ammo into bosses wasn't that big of a deal. I never felt that my resources were going to run very low. I'm not sure how different this is on hard, but if you want challenging gameplay, definitely pass over normal. And I'll just say the bad ending, which I got this time around, is very unfulfilling and feels kind of abrupt. The good ending is far better in terms of wrapping up the story.
Cheryl? Can't be. Can't leave like this. This can't be happening. Cheryl? Cheryl!
Now it's the part of the video where we dive deeper into the game's credits and learn more about who made Silent Hill. The two names most Silent Hill fans know are probably Masahiro Ito, an artist key to Silent Hill's success, and Akira Yamaoka, a musician key to Silent Hill's success. I can't say I know a thing about the voice actors though, and I'm willing to bet that goes for a lot of other fans as well. So, I did a bit of digging with the help of my good friend Moby Games and found a couple of interesting facts. So our lead, Harry Mason, is credited as being played by a Michael G, which actually led to confusion about the actor's true identity for over a decade. The website relyonhorror.com was actually able to get an interview with the voice behind our favorite plain old video game dad, the man named Michael Gwyn. In a 2018 interview, he stated he studied theater for a bit at the University of California, but ended up actually getting a degree in international relations. He ended up moving to Japan, where he taught English for a bit, but within just months of moving over there, he wound up doing a commercial for Sony's Walkman. He went on to do voiceovers for English as a second language tapes until he started looking to video games for voice work in the early 90s. He eventually met with Silent Hill director Harry Inaba, or Haruhiko Inaba, and the rest was history. He went on to portray another iconic Konami voice, Dracula in Symphony of the Night.
It was not by my hand that I'm once again given flesh. I was called here by humans who wish to pay me tribute.
Michael never realized how popular Silent Hill became, and when he moved back to the United States after the turn of the millennia, he was never contacted to be in any of the sequels. Other than Mr. Gwen, Thessaly Lerner, the voice of Lisa, Liz Momorsky, voice of Dahlia, and Jerian Monroe, voice of Dr. Kaufman, all had solid careers in the game industry. Monroe had the most illustrious, being in games for decades, starting with King's Quest VII in 1994, up until 2019's Rad, according to Moby Games. His voice was included in many Star Wars games, Lord of the Rings Return of the King, and some Monkey Island games. What's peculiar is that Lerner, Momorsky, and Monroe all voiced characters in Sims games, and both Monroe and Lerner were in Psychonauts, Small World. Thank you to all who made this game possible. The voices really brought the creepy world of Silent Hill to life. It wouldn't be Silent Hill without you. Well, that's Silent Hill. I implore you to go play this one if you're a fan of horror games or even just a little curious about it. It's very influential on games in the last like 25 years, and it's pretty damn scary too. My fingers are crossed that the Silent Hill 2 remake is good and that it sells well. We'll see if this series is destined to continue or not. It's been cursed for a while. That being said, please comment down below about your time and experiences in Silent Hill, and let me know what game I should play next. Thank you.